Are you trying to decide between living in Norman, Oklahoma or Edmond, Oklahoma? In this video, we're going to compare and contrast these two cities so you might get a better feel for what they might be like for you. We'll talk about housing, location, access to amenities, everything that you could think of. And if you have more thoughts on this, please go ahead and drop those in the comments so that I can address them there. We're going to cover important factors that make these cities very unique. So let's see which is a better fit for you. So Norman, Oklahoma is a city located in central Oklahoma. It's just south of Oklahoma City. Norman's about 20 miles south of Oklahoma City, and it is separated for the most part by Moore, Oklahoma. Norman has a population of about 120,000 people at the time of filming, and it is the third largest city in Oklahoma. One of the reasons Norman is so famous is because of the University of Oklahoma. It's the city's largest employer, and it's the biggest university in the state of Oklahoma. So OU has students not just from Oklahoma, but from a lot of different other states, Texas being one of the biggest ones, and then a lot of other countries also. OU is known for having a really cool transfer or exchange program with universities in China and other countries, but China is one of the biggest ones. And OU is known for being one of the universities with the largest number of national merit scholars. So then Edmond, in contrast, is located just 15 miles north of Oklahoma City. The population in Edmond is around 90 to 95,000 at the time of filming. So Edmond is the fifth largest city in Oklahoma. Edmond has a ton of stuff that you can do there as well. And they do also have a public university called the University of Central Oklahoma. One of the things about Edmond is that the home prices are going to be a little bit higher than in other parts of the state. And the location sometimes feels a little bit more accessible to people who want amenities that mirror things that you could have on the coasts, like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, some other shopping and retail, and just a little bit easier access to the north side of Oklahoma City, which has these things. I'm comparing and contrasting these two cities because I found that people are often deciding between the two if they're planning to move to central Oklahoma. Now, these cities are not known nationwide for the most part. So if I'm traveling, like say in Maine, which is not uncommon for me, I love going to Maine, then I'm gonna tell people I'm from Oklahoma City because they don't know what Norman is. People do say that they're kind of suburbs of OKC, and they are. Like Norman and Edmond are located in the Oklahoma City metro, and people from Norman, we do see Norman as its own city, its own individual place. We just have really great access to OKC. So Norman is located in the southern part of Cleveland County. So it is the county seat of Cleveland County. The state highways that kind of intersect in Norman are 77 and Highway 9. And the other big intersection that Norman is going to be close to is I-35 and I-40, or I-240 because that's the bypass for 40. So Edmond is actually located in the northern part of Oklahoma County. Oklahoma County is where most of Oklahoma City is. Oklahoma City covers many counties. It's not just one. It is a very large city, as we've mentioned in other videos. So Edmond is about 15 minutes north of Oklahoma City, and it is a big place. So it's kind of sprawling. So it depends on where you're coming from in Edmond, how fast you can get to Oklahoma City. So the two state highways that intersect in Edmond are going to be 74 and 77. You'll remember 77 from Norman. So 77 and I-35 are the same in many areas that you'll see on the map. And Edmond is really close, or the intersection of I-35 and I-44 are pretty much, that's in Edmond. So I-44, of course, goes all the way across the country, and so does I-35. Now, because Edmond and Norman are so close together, we do have like the same sort of climate things going on. Summers in central Oklahoma are typically hot. especially July and August. And then winters are going to be pretty mild. I'm actually filming on a winter day in January, and it is 60 degrees outside. One of the really cool weather events that we get is really intense thunderstorms. I'm not talking about tornadoes necessarily. If you want to hear more about tornadoes in Oklahoma, you can go and watch my weather in Oklahoma video. I'm going to link it here for you, and I'm going to link it in the description for you. I really like thunderstorms because in Oklahoma they feel really big. You can see them coming towards you, big wall clouds that may or may not have tornadoes associated to them. They're very loud, and the thunder and the lightning is just really powerful. Typical summer temperatures are going to be in the 90s and the 100s, and it is super humid. It tends to rain a lot in April, May, and June. In the winter, we typically see weather in the 50s and 60s. It can get down to the 30s and 40s, and it does, especially at night. And then we do have cold snaps. So like for a few days this winter, we had like 4 days where it was like 5 degrees outside. Not my favorite, but you know, it wasn't for very long. So we kind of talked about rain already, but we typically get around 35 inches a year of rain. In Tulsa and in Green Country, which is like where Tulsa is, they get a little bit more than 35 inches typically. So we get a little bit less than they do in that part of the state. Like I said, it typically rains in April, May, June, although it does rain in other months, of course. Let's talk about the public schools for a second. Edmond Public Schools has around 20,000 students, and there are lots of elementary schools, a few middle schools, and then they all feed into 3 different high schools. You're going to find private schools in Edmond, in Oklahoma City, and in Norman, whether they be religious, non-religious. We have some Montessori schools. We have some hands-on learning schools. It just depends on what you are looking for. There's also a lot of homeschool groups if you're wanting that. Edmond also has the University of Central Oklahoma. It's a big public university. A lot of students attend. There's around 17,000-ish students that will go to University of Central Oklahoma. And I find a lot of people moving to Edmond and working at UCO. It's a great place to work, and a big reason that we attract some great minds to our state. UCO is one of the biggest employers in Edmond. So in Norman, of course, there's also a public school system, lots of elementary schools, and in Norman, elementary schools are named after past presidents. So Eisenhower, Roosevelt, Truman, all those fun names. And then we have several middle schools that all those elementary schools are going to feed into, and then 2 different high schools. As I said before, Norman is pretty famous for being the home of the University of Oklahoma, which is the biggest public university in Oklahoma. It's the reason I moved to Norman, actually. There are around 30 to 35,000 students, usually around 30 to 31,000 students that are attending OU at any given time. Some of the different things that OU is known for is like meteorology, aerospace engineering. Meteorology is super popular and one of the big reasons that people will end up coming here. And OU is the biggest employer in Norman. A lot of my friends work for OU. Another thing that you may want to look into for both Edmond and Norman is the tech centers. So, you know, learning a technology career, or like going to school to be a plumber or an electrician, or culinary arts or something like that. So we have a ton of those as an opportunity for higher education as well. There aren't junior colleges in Edmond or Norman, but there are junior colleges accessible in Oklahoma City. Let's talk about housing for a minute in Edmond and in Norman. Let's compare and contrast. So what I found as a real estate agent is that Edmond is going to be slightly pricier than Norman is going to be. If you're planning to buy a new house, you might end up paying the same in Edmond that you do in Norman for a new house, but it kind of depends on the location in Norman and the location in Edmond. So of course, the closer in you are to a city center, to the city center, either in Norman or in Edmond, the higher price you're typically going to pay unless your house is coming with land. And when we say land, I mean anything bigger than a city lot is going to cost you just a little bit more. Typically from half an acre to an acre is what we find in neighborhoods, and anything larger than that is going to be outside of neighborhoods. One thing that you'll notice about Edmond versus Norman is Edmond's going to have significantly more gated communities than Norman will have. Norman is also going to have more opportunities for condos and townhouses than Edmond. And you probably won't have the same opportunities for condos and townhouses just overall in the state of Oklahoma that you might in other states that are closer to the coasts. So it's not uncommon for people to live in Edmond and work in Norman, or live in Norman and work in Edmond. It does happen. It is a little bit of a drive. And of course you do hit like rush hour traffic, our version of rush hour traffic between those two cities. And I help a lot of people who are wanting to move from Edmond to Norman or opposite. It's also a very common occurrence because who wants to drive for 45 minutes a day one way if you don't have to? There are lots of opportunities for jobs within each city themselves. So I'm gonna name the top 5 employers for each city, Edmond and Norman. Are you ready? So the top 5 employers in Norman are gonna be the University of Oklahoma, Norman Regional Health System, Norman Public Schools, Johnson Controls, which they make like HVAC systems, commercial ones, and then Walmart. The top 5 employers for Edmond are going to be the University of Central Oklahoma, Edmond Public Schools, the City of Edmond, Integris Health, and then Marcie, which is another hospital system. I hope this video helped you out. And if you have more questions, please drop them in the comments. So I'm Marcie Billen. I actually live in Norman. I go to Edmond a lot, and I went to Edmond a lot as a child as well. It's grown a lot and changed a lot since then. And it's somewhere that we frequent, of course. So I am a real estate agent in Norman, Oklahoma. If you need more information about these two cities or even about Oklahoma City itself, I do have some guides that will help you out. You can find those guides in the description. I think that you'll find them really helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I would definitely try to watch this video next.